Banter, speaker.
A blessed good morning, honorable members, and those under the sound of my voice. Today, in our Moments of Impact devotional segment, I'll be sharing part one of a message entitled, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. All of us, at some point in time in our lives, have encountered wolves in sheep's clothing. If you haven't encountered any as yet, just live long enough. Charlatan, imposter, phony, tricksters are all words to describe wolves in sheep's clothing. Wolves in sheep's clothing are in every sphere of society. They're in the church. They're in political parties. They're in our workplaces. They're in the educational system. They're in the business world. They're in our families. They are everywhere. A wolf in sheep's clothing is a person who purports or claims to be someone or something they're not. A wolf in sheep's clothing is a person who will disguise themselves as your friend or your supporter, only to gain access to you for selfish reasons. These types of people will smile in your face, but cut you down behind your back. They will ridicule you and say all manner of evil against you. Sadly, there are people who are in your inner circle who are walking around as wolves in sheep's clothing, acting like they are with you, but secretly trying to undermine you. I recall a biblical leader by the name of Nehemiah who had to deal with wolves in sheep's clothing while he was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah 6:1-2 reads, "Now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arabian, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let's meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of No. But they thought to do me mischief." Nehemiah discerned that the men who wanted to meet with him were wolves in sheep's clothing and had evil intentions and was on a mission to get him to sabotage his assignment. Nehemiah responded to them in verse 3 saying, "I'm doing a great work. I cannot come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it to come down to you?" In conclusion, for part one, I want to encourage each of you under the sound of my voice to beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Don't be duped. Be wise and stay woke. I leave you with this final thought today. It is not the wolf who looks like a wolf who is most dangerous. It's the wolf who looks most like a sheep. Selah. Think and act on these things. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we praise and exalt your name, for you are great and greatly to be praised. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, your name is worthy. So today, Almighty God, we pause one more time to seek your face on behalf of our nation. Your word says men ought always to pray and not faint. And so, Father, today we ask you, Almighty God, to direct and guide the affairs of our nation. We pray for our leaders and ask that you would give them eyes to see, give them ears to hear what is your perfect will for our nation. Oh Lord, as the budget debate resumes today, we pray for sobriety and wisdom for our leaders as they make financial decisions that will not only affect us today, but generations yet unborn. We cover the proceedings of this house today and pray that the business of this house will be done in decency and in order and not in chaos and confusion. Almighty God, continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And all of God's people say, Amen. Let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Philip Davis, Chester Cooper, Fred Mitchell, Janice Hannah Martin, Alfred Sears, Oscar Michael Darble, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Vaughn Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Boleg, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRoda, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Rame, Zane Lightborn, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightborn, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Mikhail Barnaby, Michael Pintage, James Crazy Thompson, Aram Lewis, Shannon Dawn Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White, Kingsley Smith.
Good morning, honorable members. Here begins the budget debate. Let us be mindful that the presiding officer has to sit, listen to 37 of you, 38 of you, and some for 2 hours and some for an hour. So let's cool down on the banter, and let's have not too many points of orders. At least one. At least one. Okay. And so we will now begin the people's business. Introduction and swearing of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Caroline and Rumkey and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the Customs Management Amendment, number 2, Regulation 2025. This replaces, Madam Speaker, the Customs Management Amendment regulations laid on the 28th of May. It's designed to correct some of the numbers and to express the unit quantities used for LNG.
Thank you, honorable member. Is there a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, honorable members. Order that the document be brought up.
So in that instance, my lady, the previous Customs Management Regulations Amendment is withdrawn and replaced by this one.
Order the document to lie on the table. Further laying of documents.
No further laying of documents.
Thank you, honorable member. Statement and communication by ministers.
No statement and communications.
Communications by the clerk. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the Senate. Motion for leave of absence, leave to resign seat and new writs. Presentations of petitions. Presentations of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
Thank you, honourable member. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Thank you, honourable members. Order that the document be brought up. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read for the first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Central Bank of the Bahamas Act.
For the first readings. You may
Madam
proceed,
Speaker.
honourable member. You may proceed.
Yes. Beg leave to have introduced and read for the first time a bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes.
Thank you. Thank you, honourable members. Order that the document be brought up. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. No. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for the first time. A bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read for the first time and tabled.
Bill for an act to establish a maritime revenue unit to provide for the collection of fees and revenue to enhance multidisciplinary coordination and for connected purposes.
Thank you. For the first readings.
Madam Speaker, there are no further first readings, but I would like to indicate to the House that those two bills are money bills, and we would wish concurrence of the House that they be included in this debate, basically to save time. As they're just being tabled today, they are very clear in their intent.
Thank you, honourable member. Sinans?
Sound like desperate money bills, Madam Speaker, but we agree and accept that they can be debated as part of the budget debate compendium.
Thank you, honourable member. IC Central. Grand Muhammad is not here, so it's unanimous consent, so we moved on. No further first readings. Thank you, honourable member. Second reading committal of bills. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, I move for the second reading and committal of a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards the deferring of the expenses of the government, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2025 and ending the 30th of June 2026. And as is customary, Madam Speaker, there are a compendium of bills that will be informing the appropriation account, which we will seek to have debated all at the same time. I want to thank the opposition for accepting that the other two bills just laid this morning could be likewise debated as the compendium. Madam Speaker, I would like to welcome to these chambers once again I don't know how many times they were here. Lyndon Findling and Bobby Simonet. Mr. Is it Graben Roberts? Jason Roberts and Delva Evans. DeLon Evans. Please stand. I think that DeLon is from Aquinas College, and Jason, you're from Queens College.
You got some
Yeah.
Sigillion in him.
Huh?
You got some Sigillion in him.
You got some Sigillion in them? Yeah, those two individuals, two young men, depicted the day of Black Tuesday, which was integrated in the launch of the Bahamian history book that would now form the basis of our history lessons in our public schools, which was led by the Minister of Education, the Honorable Minister Dennis Hannah Martin. A proud member from Engliston. And so I just want to welcome you all here. I'm told each of you seek to have my job, and you're welcome to it. And I encourage you to do so, and don't be ashamed. You just gotta be brave. So welcome here, and to those who accompany you as well. Josh. Yeah. Madam Speaker, before I move on, I just received some sad news on the passing of Joshua Sears, former ambassador, permanent secretary, Sears, who hailed from Exuma, but grew up in Roll Avenue.
Yes.
Roll Avenue. In fact, he didn't live too far from your grandfather. Yeah. That's the member of St. Barnabas I speak to. And, we call it the ball field in those days. And we struck up and knew each other growing up on the park and always knew. He was quite the public servant. And like many of you who was rooted in the philosophy and groundings of the Progressive Party, as he was, move on to share their philosophy and expertise with the FNM. And we have been the feeding grounds for that purpose. We don't grudge you for it. We only hold up our party for developing good and great men. So I just want to extend my sincere condolences to Michelle and the family on the passing of Josh. I said I knew very well. I knew for quite a number of years. He passed he was in Cincinnati, was he? No, Columbus, Ohio, yeah. And when the news came that he was hospitalized, we did send our condolences and prayers for his quick recovery. Unfortunately, he didn't recover. And we'll continue to keep the family in our prayers. May his soul and the soul of all the faithful departed do rest in peace. Yeah, certainly.
The chair recognizes the honorable member from Markham City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, PM, for permitting me to. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, Prime Minister, for yielding, as I'm aware that you had already commenced your presentation. On our side, we wish to extend condolences to the family of Joshua Sears. It is as painful and sad for many of us here, as it is for so many of the extended family and friends of Joshua Sears. Ambassador Joshua Sears, who transitioned early this morning after a long illness, will be missed by those of us who have worked with him for so many years. It is no hyperbole to say that Ambassador Sears was a consummate gentleman and a consummate civil servant who dedicated his life in service to his country, to which he was devoted his entire life. Those who knew him from boyhood to his adult years knew him as a professional and could attest to the presence of those qualities in Mr. Sears. And he is someone who should be emulated. We in the Free National Movement, and we know that he has had friends in the Progressive Liberal Party as well. Certainly, we will miss him. His sage advice and steady hand, his quiet and unassuming manner was a comfort to all of us. He was born on the island of Exuma, but this journey would take him around the world, representing the Bahamas with such distinction that he was named the Professional of the Year in 2010 in recognition of policy analysis by the American Registry of Outstanding Professionals. And he was also listed in Strathmore, Who's Who for Leadership, Performance, and Achievement in Foreign Policy Analysis. Ambassador Sears' last official posting was as Senior Policy Advisor to the Office of the Prime Minister from 2017 to 2021. But his civil service career began shortly after receiving his Bachelor of Arts with honors from the University of the West Indies in 1975. He joined the then Ministry of External Affairs, where he served as FAS, Deputy Permanent Secretary, and Undersecretary. He would later serve as Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, where he gave outstanding service and was commended for his by his substantive minister, Ivy Dumont, who later became the first female Governor General of the Bahamas. Mr. Sears' distinguished career as a diplomat in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs included his appointment as Bahamas Ambassador to the United States of America from April 2000 to August 2006, non-resident ambassador to Mexico, and permanent representative to the Bahamas to the OAS during the same period. He would also serve as Deputy High Commissioner to the United Kingdom and the first Secretary to the Permanent Mission of the Bahamas at the United Nations in 1983. He also served as Director General and Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His service to the Free National Movement was no less outstanding as an advisor and eventually as a candidate for his home island of Exuma in 2007 general election. And so on behalf of my wife Berlice, my daughter Michaela, our entire family in the Free National Movement family, I wish to extend condolences to his wife Michelle, his family, and to all who mourn the passing of an outstanding Bahamian. May his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cal Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Madam Speaker, as a young boy, back in those days, my teacher might have said as a young lad, growing up in Cat Island, I did not fully appreciate how fortunate I was. Old by Cat Island is a place with deep spiritual roots, often expressed in rake and scrape music, with great stories handed down from generation to generation. As with so many family island communities, there's a strong culture of self-reliance. Even to this day, many people build their own homes, go fishing, and grow their own food back then, most people wanted what they still want today: to catch a break, to have an opportunity, a chance to choose and walk their own road to happiness. And so it is that I rise today in the name and on behalf of the people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador to open our debate on the budget, which is dedicated to expanding opportunities island by island. Madam Speaker, this is truly an historic moment. Just 4 years ago, in 2021, our economy was on the edge of a fiscal cliff. Many Bahamians were living lives of quiet desperation. Today, we celebrate a landmark moment when, for the first time since independence, of the first time in the independence era, we are forecasting not just a balanced budget, but a budget with a surplus. We have pulled back from the edge of the cliff. We have changed direction
The chair
and
recognizes
set a new course for growth and
Honourable
prosperity.
member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the Prime Minister would acknowledge that during the years of 1999, 2000, and also during the years of 2000 and 2001, under the recurrent expenditure and the recurrent revenues, that there was a surplus under the recurrent accounts for 1999-2000, and also there was a surplus under the recurrent accounts for the years 2000 and 2001. And I believe that this was not just projected, but this was actually achieved, that during those years, under the recurrent accounts, there was actually a surplus for 2 years that was actually achieved and not just projected. I wonder if the Prime Minister would acknowledge that during those years, that had happened.
Thank you, Honourable member.
I understand what the member is talking about, the recurrent account, but just let me. I'll let my leader of my business. I have the answer, but I would not. You answer for me, please. Thank you.
The chair recognizes the Honourable member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, the member for East Grand Bahama speaks about a balanced budget. I have in my possession.
I never said balanced budget. I said balanced budget. I said, would the Prime Minister acknowledge that during those years, under the current accounts, there was actually a surplus? I never said balanced budget. I said under those years, the current accounts.
Well, it's apples and oranges then, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the Prime Minister was speaking about the entire budget. And to make the point, Madam Speaker, in the budget year 1999 to 2000, the then government did a borrowing resolution to borrow, at that point, $78 million, and their resolution says to defray expenditure in the 1999-2000 estimates of revenue and expenditure in excess of revenue. By definition, they were saying that they were going to spend $78 million more than they collected. In the budget year 2001 to 2002, they then The borrowing resolution, Madam Speaker, this is the year 2001 to 2002, which is the second year East Grand Bahama spoke about. They resolved and got permission to borrow, let me get this right, seems to be 34 million plus, and the resolution says that that was to defray expenditure in the 2001, 2002 estimates of revenue and expenditure in excess of revenue. Again, they say they were going to be spending more than they budgeted to collect.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for that clarification. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for St. Barnabas. Yes, Chair.
Madam Speaker, you recognize me, Madam Speaker?
Yeah.
You did recognize, she recognized me. Madam Speaker, you recognize me.
Mm-hmm. I didn't speak about his current account. He wants to speak, and it wasn't a point of order. He raised to acknowledge that the current account had some surplus. That's not what I'm talking about. No. I'm saying what my budget is saying, the overall budget. So to start off by saying, we saw somewhere the chatter about this issue, and that's why we prepared to answer it, and it was answered. I don't need to answer that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You are in charge of this. You are in charge of this House. Thank you very much, ma'am. Right, Madam Speaker, and the Prime Minister, just on his feet, made the point again, and I wish for the Prime Minister to reconcile that his government, they continue to use this. They continue to use. Madam Speaker, please, Madam Speaker. Thank you. The government, the Prime Minister continues to use the refrain that when they came into office, that they were heading off a fiscal cliff, that the economy was on a fiscal cliff. But the economy, if you look in this book, the economy grew by 14%. So we're asking the Prime Minister and the government, how do you reconcile that the economy under the Free National Movement, led by the member for Kalani, was growing at 14%, but yet the government continues to say that they inherited a fiscal cliff? So we're just asking the Prime Minister to reconcile that for the Bahamian people, please. 14%.
The Chair recognizes the
member only needs to speak to the Prime Minister of the day at that time, right? And he would have told them, because they were all taken off guard when he called the election, because he saw the headwinds. He said that. Ask him what he meant by headwinds. He said he had to call the elections because he had some headwinds ahead of him, and those headwinds was going to require him to make some very difficult decisions. So to make those difficult decisions, he thought he required a new mandate. That's what he said. Well, when we came in, we knew what the headwinds were, but it wasn't difficult to deal with. We found it was not difficult to do it. One of the headwinds was the fact that the country's economy was going downhill. It was overhill. Right? And see, do not be, I don't know, Mr. Deputy, leader of the FNM, when the IMF meets with the leader of the opposition, you should sit in with them and ask these questions. They will be able to tell you what was happening. We're definitely not a fiscal cliff. Where were we? Right? So, Madam Speaker,
You're only on page 1.
we have.
What's the point of order?
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the member for East Grand Bahama, and myself, along with a former Minister of Finance, did meet with the IMF. And contrary to what the Prime Minister sought to represent just now, they certainly concur with the point that has been made. And I want to refer the Prime Minister to Central Bank report of 2021. The domestic economy registered a growth of 13.7% in 2021, following a COVID-19 pandemic-related 23.8% contraction in 2020. Amid the widespread vaccination effort and the gradual easing of globally imposed travel restrictions, a recovery commenced in the tourism output, led by a rebound in high-value air segment, joined later that year by the restart of the cruise industry. In essence, in layman's terms, Madam Speaker, when the Progressive Liberal Party came to government in 2021, in September, we were already rebounding to the extent that the central bank report indicate it was a 13.7% rebound. It was, so Madam Speaker, he met a rebound in trade. They did not stimulate a rebound. So if the central bank, Madam Speaker, is good for all other matters that we take them as an authority, the Prime Minister should follow suit and take them as an authority when he talks about what occurred when he came back, when he returned to government. And so he has misled this House.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, that is the third point of order that isn't a point of order. I would like, Madam Speaker, to put all members on notice that to make points of order that does not amount to points of order is to abuse the privilege, of the actual person speaking. And if it continues, Madam Speaker, as you had indicated, if persons continue on either side to make points of order that do not amount to points of order, that the leader of government business intends to ask for that matter to be referred to the Committee on Privilege.
Thank you, honourable member. The chair recognizes the honourable member.
But we won't be silent, just so you know.
Madam Speaker, you know,
Members.
Madam Speaker, you see,
Members.
let me tell you, everyone knows that this the domestic economy was closed. All right. If you look at what the period the central bank is talking about, the recovery happened after flights started coming to the Bahamas. When was that? When they started? It started after the lockdowns were removed. It started when? After the curfews were removed. That's when the economy started to rebound in 2021. And who did that? Who did that? The New Day government, Madam Speaker. We ended the curfews. We ended the lockdowns. Right? We gave free testing. We gave free masks. That's when it happened. Right? So, Madam Speaker,
This is the honourable member for East Grand Bahama.
Madam Speaker,
The Prime Minister said that the lockdowns had stopped and that it was during that period of time that the economy started to grow. That is not true. The revenue had picked up from March of that year. The economy had started to rebound from March of that year, well before they came into office. The trend had started from March of that year, Madam Speaker. So the economy started to grow well before they came into office.
All I'm saying, you know, the Bahamian people, you know, the one thing I don't know, Madam Speaker, is take the Bahamian people for granted. I don't do that. Right? And all I know is that they know. They know who lifted the curfews. They knew who released them from the lockdowns. They know who did it, right? And they know, Madam Speaker, they know the conditions they found themselves in during the pandemic. That's all I'm saying. Quite frankly, Madam Speaker, if you look at, at the performance of this country in comparison to any other, we perform worse than any of our counterparts in the region all around the world in respect to our handling of the pandemic. The record shows it. You don't have to look. You can Google it and you'll find that out. You don't have to ask me. So I'm not here to say what they did. I'm talking about what we did. Right? What we did. Right? What we did. And they can begrudge what we did as much as they want. See, unfortunately, Madam Speaker, what is good for the Bahamian people, the success is bad for them. And their cry, you know, Madam Speaker, their cry is primarily that we are not moving fast enough to fix the mess they left. Their mess. So we start off, right? We pulled back the country from the edge of the fiscal cliff they found themselves. We changed the direction and set the course for growth and prosperity. That's what we did. Where there was disquiet and despair, there is now hope and opportunity. Things are by no means perfect, Madam Speaker, but look how far we have come. And none of it is by accident. We publicly stated the four fiscal goals we intend to pursue when it comes to our fiscal management. And in partnership with the Bahamian people, we have achieved them all. Goal one was growing the economy. Did we do that? Yes. Did we do it? Yes. Yes, we did. We reduced our spending. Did we do that? Yes. Yes, we did. Improve revenue collection. Did we do that? Yes. Yes, we did. We found new sources of revenue. And did we do it? Yes, we did. All right? Madam Speaker, we resolved that the four elements of our strategy would, working in tandem, each contributed to righting the ship and bringing us back to a more sustainable position. In order to grow the economy, we resolved to continue to address the COVID-19 pandemic, as I indicated earlier, by providing free testing and free masks, opening up the economy that was closed safely and we opened it safely too, right? And cutting taxes to promote growth. That's what we did. At the same time, Madam Speaker, we realized that we could not rely on growth alone. This would have been unrealistic, given past trends where the Bahamas has, for any number of reasons, experienced low growth. We determined to contain costs by identifying waste and duplication. We did not want to make the mistake of the previous administration and engage in severe cost-cutting and austerity measures. This had inflicted severe hardship on many Bahamian families. We resolved to improve the administration of public revenue by doing a better job of collecting taxes from those who owed taxes and had the means to pay. And finally, we agreed to pursue new sources of revenue to diversify the public income streams. Madam Speaker, we then went about consulting and sharing this strategy with the financial and investment communities, and therefore were able to build confidence in our approach. And we committed ourselves to restoring the relationships and reputation of the Bahamas, nationally and internationally, by actively re-engaging our partners. Madam Speaker, the strategy has borne fruit in the form of economic recovery, reduced unemployment, improved finances, and improve investor confidence. It is manifested in the trading of our financial instruments and stabilized investor ratings, and we are able to service and refinance maturing debt. In simple terms, Madam Speaker, we are getting better deals in the financial markets. It is this hands-on effort that has helped to produce the results so that today we are able to say that in the coming year, the government of the Bahamas is forecast to have a budget surplus. That's how we're able to say it, Madam Speaker, and forecast it. The budget for 2025-2026 reflects the values and policies laid out in detail in our blueprint for change and builds on the progress and success of our previous 3 budgets. Our agenda is focused on security, opportunity, affordability, and reform. Security encompasses multiple goals, from national security to personal safety. Opportunity requires growing our economy, investing in people, and unleashing the potential of Bahamian talent. Affordability, which means resisting global and local inflationary pressures and addressing the structural issues which have led to prices in the Bahamas being too high for too long. And reform, which means modernizing government services in order to make them more responsive to the people, as well as embarking on the bigger changes which we need to bring about an economy that works for all Bahamians. The country stands, Madam Speaker, to reap many benefits from working within a budget with a projected surplus. The economic stability and fiscal responsibility which support it provide a great boost to investor confidence. Last week, just after I delivered the budget communication to this House, I went to New York to address a major business investment seminar to investors interested in investing in the Bahamas. There was a long line of Sears investors with significant proposals because of the boost in confidence in the Bahamas. I never tire, Madam Speaker, of telling people about how wonderful our country is and the kind of opportunities we wish to attract in order to support our national development. There are many other benefits to balancing the budget. Without a deficit, the government avoids accumulating debt, thereby reducing future interest payments. A balanced budget signals fiscal discipline, which helps us in our drive to gain higher credit ratings and, as a result, lower our borrowing costs. Fiscal responsibility also enhances our credibility with international lenders and institutions, such as the IMF or the World Bank, which can be critical in times of global economic stress. With our much improved fiscal position, we are able to continue to prioritize expanding opportunities for the Bahamian people. Wherever you are, whatever your current situation, we want to create the best circumstances to provide you with opportunities, as well as ensure that you are best placed to take full advantage of them. At this point, I wish to highlight one successive feature of our budgets, which is the year-on-year reduction in taxes, which we have introduced. Those who wish to create mischief like to claim that we have raised taxes. We have not. We have, in fact, reduced many taxes and not imposed new taxes on Bahamians. In keeping with our campaign commitment to the Bahamian people, in January 2022, we reduced VAT from 12% to 10%. We followed that up in May 2022 with a raft of tax decreases in the 2022-2023 budget. We completely eliminated customs duties on 49 food categories, and at the same time reduced duty on 7 additional food categories. I'm sure many Bahamians will have noted that we reduced duty on chicken parts, wings, and leg quarters from 30% to 10%. and reduce duty on chicken eggs from 30% to 5%. Madam Speaker. Yeah. Before I go on, I wish to return to an issue. Before I go on, I wish to.
Madam Speaker, that there weren't any taxes, Madam Speaker, when this government came into office, Madam Speaker. Okay. But Madam Speaker, may I, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, this is a budget debate, Madam Speaker.
Honorable member,
This is a budget debate. This is a part of the process, Madam Speaker. This is a budget debate.
Honorable members, I understand that this is a budget debate.
Yes.
I also understand the climate, the season. Everybody trying to sell themselves. But no. Allow me. But listen to me. Everybody will have an opportunity. When you rose to your feet, I asked you, what did you, listen, we can sing together, but we can't speak together. I asked you what it was you were on.
And I said to you,
So
the Prime
say,
statement is misleading. And this is how it's misleading. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister said that they did not increase taxes. Besides reducing VAT to 10%, they increased taxes on bread basket items simultaneously, Madam Speaker, 100%. And that is a fact. So much so that in the Prime Minister's communication last week, a week before last, Madam Speaker, they've come to clean it up now, to now reduce it to where we already had it, Madam Speaker. So it's not correct to say that they did not increase taxes, Madam Speaker. There was a tourism levy, an increase of $2 for every Bahamian that leaves this country. No matter what you call it, a levy, an increase, whatever it is a tax, Madam Speaker.
thank you, honorable member.
Madam Speaker, before I go on, I wish to return to an issue which I've raised several times in this and the previous Parliament. That, Madam Speaker, is the issue of standards in public life. I raise it now because, given some of the antics we have seen, and seeing it already this morning, in the past several months, I'm concerned that this debate does not descend into the kind of farcical behavior we have witnessed in recent times. This has undermined the dignity of all members, as it was seen not only here in the Bahamas, but around the world. Yes, with an election on the horizon and the infighting within the FNM, we have seen play out in front of us passions, yes, are likely to run high. We appreciate that. And I'm charitable enough to think, I'm charitable enough to think that this is because deep down, people really care. Deep down, they know that politics matter. They know that the decisions we make affect the lives of all of our citizens. But these are serious times. Given all that is happening in the world, with all the changes and the uncertainties we are currently experiencing, serious times call for serious people. And so, Madam Speaker, imagine my great surprise when I stumbled across a book that was published some 22 years ago entitled Politricks, a confidential handbook for politicians, aspiring politicians and political soldiers, written by one Michael C. Pintard. The same honorable gentleman, I think, who serves as leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition. Having heard so much, I tell you, this is a serious time.
I read that.
Serious times. Having heard so much recently,
Never.
of the honorable gentleman's pride in being a poet, I was not aware of his early observations on life as a politician. He would likely say the book is a satire. But he himself seems to have adopted the advice in the book. For example, I look at page 10. He describes a sign of political maturity as talking non-stop on issues about which you know very little and care even less. Ring any bells? Here's another one.
He didn't write that.
On page 84. Bahamians are chronic complainers, especially when they can hold someone else responsible. As a member of the opposition, you must be the cheerleader, finding things for them to complain about, and then leading by example. Complain every time you even see a microphone or reporter. I want last one. There are many more, but I just this last one, which I found really, really interesting. You don't read the book yet? Huh? Yeah, man. I trying to sell the book for you, man. Yeah. I got it. On page 30. Yeah, I have it right here. Yeah, I can show it to you. And one last one. On page 31. On page 30, this is what he writes, you know. Say, do not get caught up in the truth. Wow. You know,
I won't read that.
there are reasons.
We all, there's more.
There are reasons to believe. There are reasons to believe the opposition has adopted some of their leaders' playbook. In the last Parliament, for example. You know, I was wondering why in the last Parliament. Do you remember the last Parliament? Every time I stood up to speak, a favorite tactic of theirs was to shout and interrupt constantly. So that I was really able to finish my contribution without having to deal. Let me speak? No. You remember you know when you all started allowing me to speak? Remember when I told the story about my auntie and my uncle? You remember that story? How my auntie spent all those years in London and didn't come back speaking English? How my uncle was in the United States, spent all those years, didn't come back speaking Yankee? And how those three fellows who standing next to me went down in the bathroom and came back in 2 minutes of what they were talking? Remember that? You know that? From that time, you all stopped bothering with me. Right? From that time. You were here? No, I was like, yeah, no. It's right now. Go check it. And maybe I'm not a good. I could have. Next time I'll hire you to do it for me. Next time I'll hire you. No, but that was the tactic, Madam Speaker. Member for Angliston, member for.
I remember that.
For Summer, we were there. I can tell you.
Kalani didn't let him talk much back then.
Right? There was a tactic. Was to shout and to interrupt constantly. I weathered the storm. This was a grave disservice to the people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and St. Salvador, in whose name and on whose behalf I served this place. During this debate, I hope that no member feels, for example, the need to commit, and I say this, criminal damage, assault any member of the parliamentary staff, or be dragged out belly up. All for the sake of a headline.
What a belly, man.
I trust that members will engage seriously and respectfully with issues at hand.
And not politics.
We will not allow politics to distract or diminish from the undeniable truths. In the meantime, perhaps the leader of the opposition benefits from the new initiatives we are spearheading for creatives. We are creating a new things for the creators, and you'll follow. We're doing a lot of things. And there are alternatives. You know, of course, what we're doing, there are alternatives to giving speeches in empty parks, you know. Yeah, you know, yeah.
You have to draw a party to attract a crowd. When you went to Golden Gate, your most popular minister, that crowd did.
Speaker,
You have to coordinate to attract a crowd.
there are alternatives to giving speech.
Draw a party to attract a crowd.
In my community, but maybe you should throw a party too. Throw a party too. Throw a party too. They own. They get those things. Madam Speaker, in my communication to the House last week, I set out a host of new measures and initiatives which are contained in the budget. And I leave a lot of it to ministers to set them out in detail in their contributions. But there are several notable features and elements I wish to highlight. As is customary, there's been widespread commentary around the budget since the communication. I'm always pleased when Bahamian people engage in this way. Some of the commentary is clearly politically motivated, but I have also been keenly interested to hear the reactions from the members of the public. And by and large, the response has been very positive. Questions have been raised in some quarters regarding the distinction between a balanced budget and a budget surplus. It's essential to clarify this. It has been claimed that a balanced budget was presented in 1999 and was raised here again this morning because the projected deficit in fiscal years 1999-2000 and 2000 and 2001 was below 0.5% of GDP. It is argued that our budget for the upcoming fiscal year will not be the first balanced budget presented by a government since independence. I find this petty and churlish, and the argument is striking. So let me clarify what a balanced budget is. A balanced budget occurs when revenue matches expenditure, not when revenue is close, but still less than expenditure. That's a balanced budget. Not when revenue is a few dollars short, but not quite there, as was the case in the 2 years mentioned. In the 2024-25 fiscal year that we're still in now, we presented an overall deficit of less than 1%, remember? However, we did not announce this as a balanced budget. We didn't do that. That's what, so if taking your views on what happened in 2000 and 1999, 2000, 2001, we could have said last year we are presenting a balanced budget, but we didn't tell you that. What we told you is how well we have done so that we brought the deficit down to below 1%. Right? So that's the distinction, right? So this surplus that we're projecting indicates not just a balanced budget, but an expected overall reduction in debt levels, unlike the planned deficit presented in 1999 and 2000, which the leader of government business pointed out by producing the resolutions for the borrowings for those years. So we have to understand the distinction. As I said, we did not announce that this year we'll have a balanced budget. We projected what the deficit will be. And it was in the same range that was done in those years. That's not a balanced budget. Expenditure right? And revenues have to match. So our presented draft estimates for revenue are above the draft estimates for overall expenditure. One element which I have found puzzling is remarks by some pundits which attempt to diminish the importance of our balanced budget. They've tried to dismiss it as merely a forecast. Have they not noticed that every budget is a forecast? Every item in every budget is a projection of the revenue of the government that the government expects to bring in. The expenditures it plans to make, along with a number of provisions as to how it will manage its debt and other obligations. That's what the budget is all about. Perhaps the opposition, when talking about the balanced budget, is only pretending to be so ill-informed. Perhaps that's what politics advises them to do. So they play, oh, where's the book?
Very good.
See, I got it, I tell you. Yeah, and they could sell more after I finish. I helping you, man. I helping you, man.
We can
You guys go reprint, man. Go reprint.
Measure of your influence.
Yeah. Let's, yeah.
I bought an Amazon, I couldn't buy any, I tried.
Reprint.
Amazon.
Go reprint. Go reprint some. And so I said, perhaps this is what the politics advises. Let me take the forecast of the balanced budget and budget surplus. The leader of the opposition tried to depict it as a farce, an illusion. It reflects very poorly on you to think that the government of the Bahamas would publish data which will be closely scrutinized by international investors, international lenders, international institutions, that will publish data on which they will base their decisions over the next budget year and be reckless as to the accuracy of the information? A farce, an illusion? That's what you accuse us of?
Same technical people they use.
Perhaps it's because again, the politics of it. Perhaps it's because, I'm about to say that. Perhaps it's because his party's forecasts were so far from reality that he thinks such a dangerous action could never be contemplated. But this is the difference between them and us. This is why institutions like the IMF and Moody's ratings agencies have reported so favorably on our administration. We are more fiscally responsible and more credible than they ever were or have been. Other questions and commentary have been around proceeds from the sale of the Grand Lucayan Resort. This is very interesting. Let me provide some clarity around the issue. The Grand Lucayan is not directly owned by the government of the Bahamas. And they should know this. They bought it. It was owned by a subsidiary of the Hotel Corporation of the Bahamas, namely Lucayan Renewal Holdings Limited. And guess what? This was a vehicle created by you, by the F&M. This entity was established to oversee the operations and sale of the hotel. As a standard practice, once the sale of the hotel is finalized, initial proceeds will be transferred to Lucayan Renewal. The initial use of these funds will be to settle expenses such as legal fees, other closing costs, and including any pre-sale expenses arising from the operations of the hotel. Now, once all these costs are settled, the residual amount will be transferred to the Hotel Corporation. This is not unusual, and has been the standard practice of the Hotel Corporation through multiple administrations. So I'm surprised that members opposite seem unaware of this, given that they were the ones who bought the hotel in the first place and incorporated Lucayan holdings. We haven't forgotten the boastfulness. We haven't forgotten the boastfulness.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Grand Bahama.
Madam Speaker, it is not true that members of the opposition were unaware of the circumstances of Lucayan renewal.
That's a great word. I'm a little bit make a big difference, I know.
But let me make it abundantly clear. That we are aware. But what is more important is, has the government actually received the $120 million
Represented by the member.
as was represented? How much of the $120 million was received?
In the bank.
That's the ultimate question. Trying to give an illusion about some separate entity and so on does not make, it makes little sense. The question that Grand Bahamians are seeking to answer is, if you made a deal for $120 million, how much of the $120 million have you received? And when are you going to receive the balance? That's the ultimate question.
I've decided to allow your leader of the opposition, as written to the purchasers, right, and indicated the purchasers that he wrote me to. And I ain't see the letter yet.
Your office, it's been sent to your office.
I said I've not seen the letter yet. What's not the case? What's not the case? What's not the case? No, after I got the information that you wrote me, I went searching because I was trying to arrange the meeting so that you could meet both of us at the same time. That's what I wanted to do. No, that's it. So you'll get the answers when you meet with them. Madam Speaker, what I can say that each year the members of the opposition jump in to cast doubt on the fiscal targets. Most of this doubt related to concerns. Most of the doubts usually relate to concerns about the seasonality of revenue flows. Notwithstanding information from the previous year, which clearly illustrate this seasonality, and notwithstanding statements made by me and the Minister of Economic Affairs, they continue to draw the same false conclusions. They've been wrong each time, but once again, I will restate the obvious. The government's revenue is highly seasonal, with the majority of the revenue being collected during any fiscal year during the third and fourth quarters of that fiscal year, which is the first and second quarter of the calendar year. And Speaker, this year we have an added bonus. In the mid-year communication, I spoke about outstanding tax assessments, which were still subject to negotiations. I'm happy to report that approximately half of the $100 million in dispute was settled. We believe that significant payments will be made before the end of this fiscal period. We also do not forecast any fall off in the primary drivers of revenue performance for the remaining month of the fiscal year, namely the party taxes, VAT collections, business licenses, and property tax collections. On the expenditure side, capital spending was front-loaded in the first half of the budget year. Planned investments in capital projects have been executed earlier than usual in order to begin to break the cycle of late and under-executed capital works. Monthly capital expenditure from July 2024 to November 2024 averaged $40.2 million, reaching as high as $53.7 million. From December 2024 to March 2025, this expenditure normalized with payments averaging $16.3 million. Political discipline and improved internal communication among the ministries, departments, and agencies, along with prudent fiscal planning, all contribute to this level of fiscal discipline. Madam Speaker, as a result of improved revenue and expenditure performances this year and the monthly surpluses exhibited so far, I am confident that our deficit will fall to between 0.3 and 0.7% of GDP. I've seen the headlines questioning why a borrowing resolution is being tabled when the 2025-2026 budget shows a surplus. Now, unlike the resolutions that were tabled in 1999, 2000, 2001, where they're actually borrowing monies to defray expenses. The resolution, if you read it, it will confirm that it simply allows us to refinance existing debt, meaning we can replace older, higher interest loans with new ones at better rates. It does not increase our total debt. Members opposite, Madam Speaker, continue to raise the point that VAT should be completely eliminated on some goods. And some goods, I think they call, what do they call it? You call it, what do you call it? Bread basket, they call it something, right? This is a feat that they did not accomplish when they were in office. During the administration, they raised the VAT rate by 60% on all goods and services. All goods and services by 60%. And made a very limited amount of goods, 23 items. Right? Remember that, 23 items. 23 items were made VAT-free at the cash register. 23 items, right? All other goods and services went up 60%. So they use the word bread basket items, but why don't they list it? List what we're talking about to see what impact it has on the average family. So 23 items, right? In contrast, this administration reduced VAT from the 12% or the 60% they raised it to. We drop it to 10% on all goods and services. On all goods and services. That's what they did when they first came in. This helping, they helping us. And then 5% on certain essential items, such as all unprocessed foods. Right? Not just bread basket items, on all foods, apples, unprocessed. Oranges, broccoli, right? Cauliflower. Feminine hygiene products and medication. This VAT, the babies, this VAT reduction was at the border and then at every step of the way. So the net decrease in VAT paid by the consumer is larger under this administration than under the previous. The net decrease. Ill-conceived policies where VAT was only eliminated on 23 goods at the cash register. And increase on everything else. And someone just need to call those 23 items. And look at them, corn beef and stuff, right? This is because of the simple fact that under the previous system.
Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister, member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador is misleading the House when he's referring to an overall VAT decrease. The fact is that VAT has been collected at a rate of $500 million more for the past 3 years. If you take a population of 400,000, that's every individual, not just household, is paying an increased amount of $1,250. Every single household, whether you're in Engliston or St. Anne's, is looking at an increase per person of $1,250. The honourable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador was the Deputy Prime Minister when the Perry Christie-led administration introduced VAT in the Bahamas. They have no clean hands in the VAT conversation, Madam Speaker, and going from 23 items in the bread basket to what, maybe a few thousand? That few thousand includes things like whale meat, the meat of asses. That's already been debated here. Let's not talk about what this administration has done, Madam Speaker, because the figures speak for themselves. They've introduced VAT and made the Bahamian people pay $500 million more per year, Madam Speaker. That is a shameful way to treat your Bahamian people.
Madam Speaker, the member,
No, it's not what he speaks.
I think I understand, and also there's some what they call economic principles that you have to, and I might touch it on later on, so they can appreciate. He pointed out that the VAT income is about 500 million. You know what that speaks to? Let you know what that speaks to. Consumer confidence. That's what it speaks to. And it means that Bahamians have money to spend. And they're spending money on goods and services. That means the economy is booming. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that we put more money on them. It means that they have more money in their pocket to spend to get the VAT. Madam Speaker.
It's not because people are spending more by choice. People are spending more because everything costs more. You have a country where you've allowed everything to cost more, and 10% VAT on something that costs more is going to make Bahamians pay more. VAT is a PLP. VAT is a PLP legacy, and you've not reduced VAT by 2%. What you've done is put it on 10% on every single thing. Every single thing. And you come in here talking about a 5% decrease, and you left 5% on. That's still 5% more than it ever was. If you don't want people standing up on point of order, just be honest with the facts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
They had the opportunity to do all of these things. They keep saying that we introduced VAT. The PLP, yes, the PLP introduced VAT, and it was a responsible fiscal thing to do. If they didn't believe in it, they could have taken it off to paying people back. They didn't do that. What they did, they increased it instead. That's all I say. Madam Speaker.
You increased it on the.
The simple fact is, Madam Speaker, that the previous system of importers still had to pay the 12% on imported goods at the border and then seek VAT refunds from the government. If they were a VAT registrant, this policy only favored the large importers. The proposed new adjustment in the VAT rates strikes a balance between affordability for consumers and sustainability for small businesses, ensuring that our tax system works for everyone. Madam Speaker, we have delivered. Between the years 2000 and 2018, average real GDP growth in the Bahamas has been just under 1%. Then came Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 pandemic, which dealt a severe blow to our economy between 2019 and 2020, where movements in real GDP were negative. These were extremely difficult years for Bahamians and this nation. But since our administration took office in 2021, we have turned the tide with a clear mission to rebuild, recover, and push growth. And we did just that. Growth has rebounded, reaching 3.4% by 2024. That's a level of growth we haven't seen in decades. Yes. Unemployment levels are at lows we haven't seen in decades. Or put another way, the number of people in work is at the highest level it's been in decades. The last time we saw unemployment this low was just before the global financial crisis of 2008. This is a significant improvement from a peak unemployment level, which is over a quarter of the labor force in 2020. Tourism is up, and not just up, but thriving. We have now surpassed pre-COVID levels, welcoming more visitors than ever before. This is a clear sign that confidence in our destination is strong and that tourism our largest economic sector is not just recovering, but growing. Inflation has come under control. After peaking at over 5.6% in 2022, inflation has now fallen to under 1% by the end of 2024 and continues to trend downwards. That is a huge achievement for our small and open economy, especially when the fact is that we import the majority of our goods from abroad and have been exposed to ongoing global inflationary pressures. In other words, even though we have been importing higher prices from a world economy in crisis, this government has made it a priority to help Bahamian families. We have worked to improve affordability across every island. Investment levels in the Bahamas have been improving. We are seeing high and sustained levels of investment, not just in New Providence and Grand Bahama, but across our family of islands. These investments are creating jobs and building resilience and creating entrepreneurs. Let's talk about the state of our public finances, because today they are in a better place than they were before. Revenues are up. Expenditure under control. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, our fiscal deficit has been dramatically reduced. Just a few years ago, in the year 2020, 2021, our deficit stood at just over $1 billion, which was as high as 13% of our GDP. This was a time of crisis, with our economy under immense strain from natural disasters and the economic lockdowns during the pandemic. But through disciplined financial management, strategic reforms, and a commitment to fiscal responsibility, we have turned it around. In our most recent full fiscal year, 23-24, we have brought the deficit down to just $194 million, or 1.2% of GDP. By any standard, to have achieved such a turnaround in just 3 years is momentous. Or as the IMF described it, what did they say? You remember what they say? Remarkable.
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Remarkable.
What they say.
Remarkable.
Remarkable.
But did they say remarkable? You could say anything else, but they say remarkable, right? They did say remarkable, right? This was achieved even while providing more resources for healthcare, providing more resources for education, providing more resources for infrastructure, and providing more resources for social support.
Yes.
Along with this, our debt to GDP ratio has also been on the decline. The debt to GDP ratio went down from 88.7% in 2023-2024 to 72.7% in 24-25. Remarkable again, Madam Speaker. None of this happened by accident. These are the results of the wise strategic choices and priorities of our administration. The facts tell a story, not of decline, but of remarkable progress. This is what responsible governance looks like, and we are just getting started. In my budget communication, I reported that our administration has set a clear goal of bringing the Bahamas to an investment-grade credit rating. I also outlined the specific targets and strategies we intend to pursue to advance that goal. These targets included higher GDP per capita levels, higher revenue as a percent of GDP, lower debt to GDP, and lower interest as a percent of revenue. Since then, I've taken note of commentary suggesting that this objective may not be achievable within a 3-year time frame. I proposed, or even at all, and I proposed to meet these targets within 3 years. And there's been commentary that this may not be achievable. Right? And I accept, yes, the targets are ambitious, but ambition is necessary if great and big things are to be achieved. Yes. 4 years ago, there were many who scoffed at the idea that we could achieve a balanced budget. And yet, here we are. These are our goals, and we have set out our roadmap as to how we will achieve them. Yes, it will require strong, continued fiscal discipline and wise stewardship of the economy, but we do not flinch from either responsibility. This administration believes in setting high standards and working relentlessly to meet them. Whether we reach investment grade in 3 years or slightly beyond, the important thing is that we are moving decisively in the right direction with discipline and with purpose. Last week, the leader of the opposition stood and asked, the question is, no, sorry, make sure I get it right. The question isn't what the government will promise on budget day. It's how many more promises they have failed to deliver. Well, Madam Speaker, I don't like boasting, but since the leader of the opposition asks so nicely,
If it's true, it's ain't boasting.
I will seize the opportunity to tell him what we have delivered on our promises. The list is long, so it may take some time, and I might not tell them all. You see, ours is not a world of politics. When we speak of promises, our government doesn't just talk. We deliver. Let's begin with energy reform. We delivered. After decades of the Bahamian people suffering from a broken, underfunded system that resulted in exorbitant light bills and frequent blackouts, we have successfully integrated LNG into the energy mix and have entered into public-private partnerships for the upgrade and, in some instances, replacement of the New Providence power transmission and distribution systems. We have also entered into several PPAs for microgrids throughout the Family Islands. In New Providence, we have entered into agreements for 70 megawatts of solar power. This is over $500 million in private funding mobilized this year for energy reform. Oh, did I mention people's light bills came down?
Yes.
Did I mention that? Huh? Summer coming. Summer coming too. We in summer now, eh? Summer no. Check it. Did I mention that? Now, the minister. Yeah, he said, don't let the truth get in this way. Don't let the truth get yeah. But the Minister of Energy will give more details on these matters and to give more details on how light bills are going. We said, I said this before, but I got to repeat it again. He did ask nicely, so I respond. We promised to reduce VAT, right? Did we not deliver?
And revenues went up. And revenues went up. They said it couldn't happen.
VAT was reduced from 12 to 10%, putting money back in the pockets of Bahamians, especially during these tough times. We also cut VAT rate from 10% to 5% on unprocessed food items, and just last week, we extended this relief to all diapers, feminine hygiene products, and prescription medication, making everyday essentials more affordable for the most vulnerable. We committed to reform public finances. Madam Speaker, we delivered. When we came into office, revenue stood at $2.6 billion. At the end of financial year 2024, revenue had grown to over $3 billion, an increase of over $400 million. At the same time, recurrent expenditures was reduced by $100 million to $3 billion in 2023-2024. We delivered, Madam Speaker. We are on a path to fiscal discipline and sustainability, not as a catchphrase, but as a measurable fact. You can measure it. And there's more, Madam Speaker. We promised infrastructural improvements, and we delivered. We have paved roads, upgraded clinics, repaired schools, and secured funding for 2 new hospitals in Grand Bahama and New Providence. Madam Speaker, we have secured over $100 million in financing through the African Export-Import Bank to support private sector investment in infrastructure in Exuma, Eleuthera, and Cat Island.
More to come.
And more to come. And my ministers will be talking in more details on how these funds are going to be dealt with. We also secured guaranteed financing. We also secured guaranteed financing from the UK Exim Limited Bank to rebuild the glass window bridge, a critical link for Eleuthera's residents and one of the visual wonders of the world. Now, once a contractor is selected, the loan agreement will be finalized. I saw there's some commentary on the estimated cost of $80 million for this project. Now, first of all, that's the estimated cost. But however, Madam Speaker, many of us who have been in public life over many, many years, if you add up all of the interventions to patch the bridge, to make it safe to travel over the many, many years, to patch what I call the Band-Aid fixing of that bridge has gone, it's more than $80 million to date, if you go back like that, right? If you add it all up. Because no one took the bull by the horn and say, look, we have to stop band-aiding this issue. We have to go to the root and fix it.
Yes.
That's what we intend to do, right? We intend to do across the board, right? We intend to fix this and fix it permanently and properly. With the engineering complexity involved in doing this properly, it is estimated to cost up to $80 million. In New Providence, we are partnering with the Inter-American Development Bank to launch the comprehensive road and drainage improvement program for New Providence, making our roads safer and more resilient to flooding. Bahamex, the government's road paving entity, will complete this project. These are not ideas on paper. They are concrete, visible improvements in our communities and in the lives of the Bahamian people. We made education a top priority. And Madam Speaker, your minister has delivered.
Yes.
We have invested in the National School Breakfast Program,
Yes.
increasing students' attendance and performance, improving their life chances, easing the burden on families, and created new catering opportunities for food vendors. I'm so very proud of this initiative, Madam Speaker. And I take every opportunity that I have to visit some schools in the morning sometime and just engage with the staff and students. These are moments of real joy, just to see them eating breakfast and the eager eyes and how they gather together in community, sit together and talk before the classes start. You know, that's why it's hard to believe that
They criticized.
that it was criticized.
Yeah. Oh, man.
How on earth you could fault something that is so obviously good,
Y'all off
supporting
to a
our
bad
children
start.
and their families in getting an education? Too much politics and not enough compassion. We have done a lot more. We have done a lot more for education.
Take his picture now.
We also increased scholarships. Prioritized school repairs, and invested in technology for students. But we're doing some auditions right now. You didn't turn up, eh? You didn't try? No.
I turned up right here to take your job. I auditioned for that job.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, good. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Auditions, Madam Speaker, are currently underway for enrollment into CAPUS, our new National Creative and Performing Arts School of the Bahamas.
You support this?
This has been a long-held dream.
Okay.
This has, he's
criticized everything.
This has been a long-held dream of the cultural and creative community. And some members will be pleased to hear that there's no upper age limit to enrollment. No upper, right? So those poets and performers among you of all ages who may have dabbled in other pursuits in recent years, you can take advantage of the world-class professional training when your career here is over. You know, we have increased our allocations to the University of the Bahamas and the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute as these institutions move to accreditation. Accreditation for both institutions will be a major milestone for tertiary education in the Bahamas and will no doubt have a positive impact on the entire education system. In this budget, we put no new taxes on Bahamians. And this has been consistent with our approach since coming to office. We have managed national development and fiscal recovery without burdening our people with new taxes, a promise kept even under fiscal pressure. In terms of affordable housing, we didn't just talk about it, we built it. We delivered on our promise to increase access to affordable homes, a promise we will continue to fulfill. Through a successful public-private partnership, the Pinecrest subdivision in New Providence was developed, featuring 47 homes. Along with this is the development of the Renaissance subdivision, which has welcomed at least 52 new Bahamian homeowners. Colleagues, please remind me, how many homes the F&M government built? Zero. None? Zero. Not one? Not one? They promised the world, but did not build a single new road, hospital, school, or clinic. Not one.
The honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, San Salvador is misleading because the homes that they constructed were done in F&M subdivisions. Even the member for Carmichael. Even the good honorable member for Carmichael, Madam Speaker, as we're to call one another, even the good honorable member for Carmichael said that it takes 3 years for a subdivision to get approvals. It takes 3 years for a subdivision to get approval. They began building in the first year, Madam Speaker. You can't build in a subdivision that takes 3 years unless it was an F&M subdivision.
Just wanted to clarify that the government, the Davis administration, first set of homes that popped out of the ground was in the Pinecrest subdivision. That was already in existence in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, a Bahamian subdivision.
That's right. Ain't no F&M or PLP subdivision.
I think, what is interesting is that the claim here, or the point of order, was that we built homes, but we built them in F&M subdivisions. But Madam Speaker, the question I pose The question I pose is how many houses they built
In any subdivision.
in any subdivision. PLP, FNM, or any other subdivision. How many they built? And what was the answer? None. 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 You know, and in that year, nada. Zero. Zilch. None. Madam Speaker, let's talk about economic recovery. As I indicated earlier, they left the country in a free fall, but we brought it back. We haven't just returned to pre-COVID levels, we have surpassed them. You know, Madam Speaker, they should be thanking us not just for cleaning up the mess they left behind, but for rescuing our beautiful Bahamas. We also fulfill our commitment to remove the Bahamas from the various blacklists. As outlined in our blueprint for change, we took swift, decisive actions to clear up all pending matters and implemented proactive monitoring to protect our financial reputation moving forward. We delivered, Madam Speaker, on our commitment to disaster management, mitigation, and relief. We implemented a national disaster risk management framework, strengthening earlier warning systems, response coordination, and community preparedness. Additionally, we are securing a policy-based loan from the Inter-American Development Bank to help support disaster resilience in the face of climate-related emergencies. This administration has also taken important steps to strengthen our disaster preparedness and response. We have established two key funds, the Disaster Prevention Fund and the Disaster Emergency Fund. Madam Speaker, to our young people, yes. We just didn't say you are the future. We put that belief into action. Yes. We delivered on our promise to empower our youth through the establishment of the National Youth Guard. Yes. Yes. Since its launch in January 2023, the program has trained over 250 young Bahamians in disaster preparedness, technical trades, and public service. And Madam Speaker, you know, there's some interesting stories that you'll find prevailing amongst these young people who enlisted in that program and the impact that the program has had on them. You know, I can say over 75% of the participants in that program are now meaningfully employed somewhere, or are off to school, all being inspired by the program. All right? I say 75%, they told me it's much more than that, but 75% or more, all been positively inspired. And if you speak to any of them, which I welcome you to do, let's talk to them to see what that did for them and how that's changed their lives. I recall I went to Pinewood Park with the Minister of Social Services, Miles Neroda, when we were recruiting for the last cohort. And they were out there from 9 o'clock that morning. I got out there around 4:30, 5 o'clock that afternoon. And one of the men, a young man who was there, he was there, and he was there from 8:30 that morning up to 5 o'clock. He was still there. And he was a graduate of the first cohort. And he was there speaking to the potential enlistees and telling his story of how that changed his life and how he was then gainfully employed in the construction field. He started off working in the construction field. He has a good job as a foreman and also doing his own separate small contract work. And he accredited that program to righting his ship. I was so proud of that because he came back to give back, to tell his story to those who were looking to be a part of the Youth Guard. And I'm so proud of the program, and we're continuing another cohort will be starting soon, and we just we double the budget for it. Yeah. Madam Speaker, we have also delivered on our promise to boost entrepreneurial development. This investment has empowered thousands of Bahamian entrepreneurs, providing them with access to grants, loans, and equity funding to start and grow their own businesses. As of December 2024, the Small Business Development Center, an institution that supports micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises across the Bahamas, has facilitated over $92 million in funding, benefiting 2,456 clients across 16 islands. These efforts have strengthened our entrepreneurial ecosystem, fostering innovation and economic resilience throughout the nation. So, Madam Speaker, when the opposition asks how many promises we have failed to deliver, I say we are too busy delivering on our promises to keep count of their criticisms. This budget is not just about another set of promises. They are the results of a successful fiscal strategy, which has now put our country in a strong position to invest in the Bahamian people and to expand opportunity for all, island by island. In respect of the revenue-raising measures contained in this budget, let me begin by assuring this Honorable House and the Bahamian people that this administration is not introducing any new taxes and fees on Bahamian citizens. Our focus remains firmly on improving compliance, updating outdated frameworks, and ensuring equity and sustainability in our revenue system. This year's revenue measures are structured around 6 major themes: affordability, environmental health, marine protection and development, modernizing operations, tax measures update, and private cruise destinations. In my communication, Madam Speaker, I spoke about the positive impact private destination is having on our economy. I also spoke about the mutual goal of the cruise lines and the government to improve compliance with our laws at these locations. We have tabled measures to improve compliance at these destinations. These measures cover immigration, customs, and water sports. Under the Immigration Fees Regulation Amendment, individuals who are engaged in gainful occupation aboard passenger ships and disembark to perform services on land at a private destination will now be required to pay or to obtain a temporary work permit. A fee of $3 per day will be charged, inclusive of contributions to the National Insurance Board on behalf of both the employee and the employer. Every non-Bahamian working in the Bahamas, regardless of their point of arrival, must be properly documented, and companies found in violation will be held accountable. Under the Harbor Dues Act amendment, a wharfage fee of $20 per ton will be assessed on any cargo which is being cleared at a sufferance port, which would include private cruise destinations. For water sports operations at private cruise destinations and elsewhere, the Commercial Recreational Watercraft Act was amended to penalize non-Bahamian operations. In previous budget communications and statements in this House, I've spoken about the underperformance on VAT, on real estate. I've also introduced a variety of measures to address this underperformance, including an amnesty and modernizing the system to collect VAT on real estate. The results have still been disappointing. From the public utterances of the real estate professionals, the Ministry of Finance has estimated that government is being deprived of at least $100 million a year in annual revenue, with most of it, if not all, related to foreign purchases of Bahamian real estate. In this budget, we are proposing a comprehensive set of measures to address this leakage. The most obvious form of leakage is underreporting the transaction value. In the past, we do not have the tools to identify underreporting. However, with improvements in our processes, we can identify underreporting pretty accurately. The proposed amendment to the VAT Act provides penalties for underreporting, including in the most extreme cases, an application to the Supreme Court for forfeiture to the Treasury. Another loophole is structuring the transaction to disguise the transfer of ownership. For example, putting the property into a Bahamian company, which is then owned by a company in another country, and then transferring the shares of the parent company. The reality is that these transactions would not be possible without the involvement of our professionals. Hence, the amendment to the VAT Act requires professionals to report on all transactions. While the current amendment speaks to new construction prior to passage, this would be adjusted to speak to reporting on all transactions. Finally, there are still too many transactions which are not recorded. We are proposing an amendment to make recording land transactions in the Registry of Records, or, if not mandatory, making the conveyance ineffectual until stamped and recorded. This aligns with the work we are doing with the land reform initiatives that we have laid in this House. With respect to another amendment to the VAT Act, Madam Speaker, a taxable person or entity will no longer be permitted to claim input tax deductions for goods and services used in major construction projects or as building docks, reclaiming land, or undertaking developments valued at over $1 million, unless they are in the business of supplying real property as a part of their regular operations. In other words, if a real estate developer is building homes or commercial spaces for sale, and the costs are directly tied to these taxable sales, they'll be able to claim VAT credits. However, for private developments not intended for resale, this benefit will no longer apply. This is to ensure that VAT refunds are used appropriately and not in ways that disproportionately benefit large private interests at the expense of the public purse. At the same time, we're also making provisions to allow for the refund of VAT where it has been overpaid, ensuring fairness and transparency in the system. In addition, religious organizations will now be formally included under VAT-exempt categories as part of our broader effort to clarify and streamline tax relief for such entities. We are also introducing measures to enhance maritime safety and regulation. Amendments to the Water Skiing and Motorboat Control Act will establish enforceable safety protocols for jet ski operators, including the mandatory wearing of approved flotation devices and restrictions on operating during hours of darkness. Jet skis will also be prohibited from carrying passengers unless both parties meet the safety requirements. All motorboats will be required to display a visible registration number. These changes are designed to ensure the safe and responsible use of our waters. In addition, in the Port Authority's Amendment Bill, there is a requirement that all foreign vessels will now be required to keep on the automatic identification systems while they are in Bahamian waters. This assists with search and rescue, but also aid in identifying vessels which are not complying with the terms of their entry permit. These revisions ensure that the tourism and marine leisure sectors contribute fairly to the national revenues. We are strengthening the enforcement of seabed leases. Under the Port Authority's Amendment Bill, any unauthorized use of the seabed will attract penalties. This protects our marine resources and ensures proper regulation of underwater space. We have also put in place a mechanism to collect environmental levies on seabed leases. This is important as we have established that the seabed has substantial monetary value. We are amending the customs management regulations to have 3 categories for cruising permits with a fee increase. With the amendments to the fisheries resources regulations, we are also tightening the permit process and delinking the fishing permit and anchorage approval from the cruising permit. There will be separate charges for a fishing permit, and any vessel not with a marina or yacht booking would need to pay for an anchorage permit. Under the amended Port Authorities Act, the minister would have the ability to designate anchorage zones throughout the archipelago. This will only be for places where anchoring by a foreign vessel is allowed. To simplify processes for frequent travelers who visit the Bahamas with their own craft by sea or air, we are introducing a frequent visitors digital card in the amendment to the Customs Management Regulations. This will be valid for 2 years and will apply to private boats and private aircraft and substantially lower the costs for the private pilots and private boaters that come as repeat visitors. The card will be valid for a 2-year period at a cost of $2,000 and allows unlimited admissions without the payment of customs processing fees. It is well known, Madam Speaker, that non-Bahamians have substantial presence in the yacht charter sector. This has occurred because we have been slow to update regulations that allow limited foreign participation in the sector. These regulations allowed high-end charters to be booked outside of the country. But the market for yacht charter is now predominantly a high-end market, so Bahamian yacht brokers could not participate in the growth of this industry. This will change with the passage of the compendium of legislation on the marine sector. Non-Bahamian charter operators using sea vessels within Bahamian waters will now face well-defined enforcement measures for licensing, inspection, insurance, and registration requirements. Failure to comply may result in the imposition of fines and the impoundment of vessels. Fixed penalties will be introduced under the Commercial Recreation Watercraft Act and amendments to the Boat Registration Bill. This administration, Madam Speaker, is also taking steps to protect the environment and hold polluters accountable. An amendment to the Environmental Health Services legislation will make both domestic and foreign commercial vessels, including cruise ships and inter-island cargo ships, responsible for the emission of pollutants or contaminants in our waters. Penalties will be assessed based on the size of the vessel and the nature of the emissions, whether at sea or on land. In addition, we'll be introducing a tipping fee of $300 per ton for waste emanating from a cruise ship that goes to the New Providence landfill. The proceeds from the collection of this fee will be allocated to a new Environmental Health Services levy fund established under the Public Finance Management Act amendment. This fund will support the development, maintenance, and rehabilitation of waste management infrastructure on the Family Islands, including dump sites, transfer stations, and treatment facilities. It will also support public education and training initiatives in sanitation and waste management. As part of our push to modernize the economy, amendments to the customs management legislation will allow cannabis imports to be permitted exclusively for medicinal use. To be clear, importation will require the approval of the Cannabis Authority. Other amendments will be introduced in respect of prefabricated homes, which will now require prior approval from the Ministry of Works before importation. To support industrial development, an amendment to the Industries Encouragement Act will allow for approved manufacturers to import laboratory equipment and supplies free of customs duty. This is intended to encourage the establishment of in-house labs for spot testing and quality assurance. We are amending the Business License Act, Madam Speaker, to address the proliferation of liquor stores by allowing the community to have a say in whether the license is to be granted or renewed. And this has been a problem, particularly in our inner cities. Yes, sir. Right? And this is now going to be public. Yeah. We are lowering VAT. Yeah. We are lowering VAT and customs duties. We are lowering VAT and customs duties on several essential items.
You got to check.
As I said before, VAT has been reduced on hygiene and medical supplies. Customs duties will be removed on key building materials, retail, butane fuel for domestic and emergency use, on signages for churches. Reductions in customs duty will also apply to cleaning products, small household appliances, 20-ton trucks, and filters of all types. Proper asset management is a vital part of responsible fiscal stewardship. The new Asset Disposal Assessment Unit, established under the Public Finance Management Act amendments, will ensure that the government property is disposed of properly and that revenues from these sales are fully realized and accounted for. This will help to reduce pressure on the public expenditure in the long term. We continue to pursue the collection of outstanding real property tax. Derelict properties not only reduce tax revenues, but also contribute to housing and urban decay. To address this, the Real Property Tax Act will be amended to introduce tax concessions for the repair or removal of derelict residential buildings. Where owners commit to improving such properties, exemptions from real property tax arrears will be granted. We'll also establish a minimum property tax on land containing derelict buildings. Madam Speaker, recent divisions to our gross domestic product statistics based on updated methodologies have revealed significantly higher revenues relative to GDP than previously projected over the medium term. In response, the government is adjusting its fiscal objective. The gross revenue to GDP targeted for fiscal year 2025-2026 has been revised downward from 25% to 23.6%. We intend to return to the medium-term target of 25% in subsequent years, aligning fiscal strategy with sustainable growth. These measures reflect a clear and focused revenue strategy. We are not placing additional burdens on our people. Instead, we are reforming enforcement, investing in environmental protection, modernizing economic policy, and creating incentives that support development. This administration remains committed to building a fairer, more resilient, and more competitive Bahamas. If I turn now to measures relating to expenditure for the upcoming fiscal year. We are moving forward, Madam Speaker, with the second phase of our comprehensive public service salary review. The first phase, now complete, focused on middle management and above. Public servants will see increases in their salary or adjustments in their salaries at the end of this month. Middle management, public servants will see increases in their salaries at the end of this month.
They don't see him happy.
That's following our salary review that we promised. There's a second phase. Phase 2 is coming, which will bring salary adjustments of up from anywhere between 3 to 8% for the remainder of the public service. A vital step to help restore purchasing power lost to inflation, while also promoting fairness, retention, and morale across the public sector. The second phase will be implemented in September 2025. Madam Speaker, we are also expanding the health insurance coverage. We are also expanding the health insurance coverage for all government employees. This initiative will provide broader protection for our public officers, reduce out-of-pocket medical costs, and improve overall access to health care for those who serve our nation. We are also modernizing the delivery of health care benefits by enhancing the National Insurance Program. We are transitioning the prescription drug benefit program from the National Insurance Board to NHI, supported by a new upgraded IT system. This digital shift will improve operational efficiency, ensure private insurers pay when required, and help reduce pressure on the public purse. Madam Speaker, in the next fiscal year, we will continue to make meaningful progress with what I call the One Tax Bahamas, our effort to build a simpler, smarter, and more transparent tax system. This will be ready in January 2026 to incorporate the domestic minimum top-up tax that is now in force. We are developing a modern digital platform so that individuals and businesses can register, file, and pay taxes online with no more long lines or piles of paperwork. To date, we have designed a foundation for a secure and user-friendly tax system, began development of a new taxpayer registration portal and website, drafted robust data protection and privacy policies, which will include provisions to address issues of cybercrime and wrongful use of artificial intelligence, AI, and engage key stakeholders across government to ensure the system serves all Bahamians effectively. To stay on schedule, we have made several key strategic decisions, including using a cloud-based solution to prevent delays and to ensure the system is ready by March 2027. We continue to work hand in hand with our partners to meet international standards and deliver a tax system that works for the Bahamian people. We are continuing our commitment to Grand Bahama, allocating $1 million for the West Sunrise Highway and maintaining support for CoLab and the Grand Bahama Humane Society. We are also continuing our support to the Small Business Development Center in Grand Bahama to ensure that entrepreneurs have the tools they need to thrive. Across the Bahamas, Madam Speaker, we're investing $31 million in road remediation, drainage infrastructure, sidewalk development, and roadways, as you say, island by island. Additionally, $6 million has been allocated for airport infrastructure development. And we are, Madam Speaker, we are making significant investments in health, including funding new medical equipment, preparatory work for the new Providence Hospital, construction of new clinics in the Family Islands, maintenance and upgrades for community clinics and medical facilities. We are, Madam Speaker, prioritizing food security by investing in the development of the Center for Food and Nutrition Security and continuing support for farmers and the Golden Yoke Program. These efforts will help reduce our dependence on imports and strengthen local food systems. As I referenced earlier, education remains a cornerstone of our national development. In this budget, we are allocating $25.8 million for the maintenance and expansion of public primary and secondary schools, investing $8.6 million in school ground improvements and digitization, providing $37.9 million in scholarships for UB, BTVI, and international studies, supporting the operations at UB and BTVI with over $52 million allocated in the upcoming budget. Giving grants to the Center for the Deaf, yes, the School for the Blind, and Stapleton School. Yes. Madam Speaker, we are addressing housing and social needs by allocating $5 million for small home repairs, providing $2 million to continue the rent-to-own housing program. Work is being continued with the Renaissance Subdivision Housing Project in this budget. We have put in place measures to fund this project independently through the interest earned on the mortgage insurance fund for additional housing infrastructure. We have also brought forward an amendment to the Central Bank Act, which would allow use of unallocated interest from the dormant accounts to fund home roof repairs. We are also, Madam Speaker, continuing to support those who deliver critical aid to our communities with funding for children's homes, NGOs, and charitable organizations. In total, $29.6 million has been allocated for social assistance to ensure food, shelter, and basic needs are there for the most vulnerable. We are investing $4.5 million to support small and medium-sized businesses with additional funding for the Small Business Development Center. These investments are about creating jobs, building wealth, and empowering Bahamians to succeed. National security remains a top priority. Royal Bahamas Defense Force has been allocated $17.7 million for equipment and sea vessels and the development of the Coral Harbor and Inauga bases. We are also funding the acquisition of fire trucks and expanding our CCTV network to enhance public safety. This budget, Madam Speaker, is about one thing above all else: putting the Bahamian people first across all islands. Our efforts to strengthen revenue are not just about balancing the books. It is to enable the Bahamian government to strengthen its support for and investments into the Bahamian people. Revenue is being reinvested into improving lives, building communities, and developing our country. This should come as no surprise to anyone, as our choices and priorities across the public finances reflect core PLP values. Our party was founded on the principles of social justice and equality, labor rights and fair wages, environmental stewardship, and the empowerment of women and young people. All sit at the heart of our mission. And we have long-standing commitments to progressive economic policies, social protection, healthcare, and education for all. This budget reflects who we are, not just as a party, but as a people.
Yes.
The idea of opportunity for all sits at the heart of this budget. Two things are essential to benefit from opportunities: need to create more opportunities, need to make sure people are ready to take advantage of the opportunities. So, Madam Speaker, along with creating the structures and providing resources to support opportunities, we are committed to doing all we can to support the Bahamian people to take advantage of them. So I urge every Bahamian to commit to a personal program of education, skills training. Whatever your age and stage of life, whatever your circumstances, please put yourself on a path to fulfill whatever dreams or ambitions you may hold. The new technologies and ways of doing things favor those who are ready to put their best foot forward. It's never too late. And at this stage of our national development, there are so many reasons why Bahamians can be strongly positioned to better enjoy the fruits of their labor. And the career paths on offer are many and varied. The Bahamas Polytechnic Accreditation and Training Hub for high schoolers is a new facility designed to provide career, technical, and vocational education and training for high school students. I've already mentioned CAPUS, the new Creative and Performing Arts School, offering free, world-class professional training in the creative, performing, and production arts. Then there's the Upskill program, which will provide paid online certification courses and hybrid training across a range of sectors, including AI, data science, marketing, etc. The Blue Economy Accelerator, in partnership with the Nature Conservancy and IDB, provides support for marine-based entrepreneurs. And we are also increasing resources for other programs. $2.6 million for the National Maritime Academy, creating a new Business Development Incentives Act for large businesses investing locally, at a level of $50 million turnover, providing a $3 million in new funding for the venture capital fund, and creating a new line of $100,000 annually to fund and support the Dundas Center for the Performing Arts. Huh? Huh? You say that's finished? It's a start, eh? It's a start, eh?
You said nothing?
He said,
You said nothing?
we continue
That's what they said.
to roll out the National Apprenticeship Program. Madam Speaker, in their contributions, my parliamentary colleagues will outline the many projects and initiatives we have in constituencies in New Providence throughout the Family Islands. And so for now, I'll concentrate on my islands, my constituency.
Yes.
On Cat Island, the people can see the progress being made as we improve the roadworks and expand the airport. Someone say 30 years later. Well, that's true. But of those 30 years, how many times y'all in power? Listen, y'all, look, I can say this, right? The former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram, when he spoke at your rally in Artistown.
You mean when you beat him?
Right? No. In Artistown. You would recall what he told them. I've never done anything for you all, but if you give me him, I'll do it. Wow. Remember that? So never done anything for Cat Island. No, get him. Banter. He wasn't campaigning for me then. so no, I accept. And you see, but and as I said, I'm a patient man. I'm a patient person. Always have been, right? And all I say is that I kept asking, right? I kept asking. For 30 years, I was asking. Today, I don't have to ask. And not having to ask what's happening?
What's happening? Let us know.
Cat Island people can see the progress being made as we improve the roadworks, waterworks, and expand the airports. A new hydroponic farm will also be built as part of a network of 5 farms on Cat Island. New Providence, Grand Palma, Abaco, and Andros. A number of agricultural tractors, we already have one down there, and some other things, and equipment are also being delivered. On San Salvador, major road rehabilitation program, the team is getting ready to start the roadworks in San Salvador. And then a new high school, that we've all been promising for quite a while, is about to, the minister is going to look into that and speak more to that when she gets to it, but that is on the way. And of course, I have several homes being built that will go for rental in San Salvador as we speak. The clinic on Rumkey, yeah, whatever you say, man. It's done, man. On Rumkey, the clinic, we're waiting to hear from the ministry on that. It's substantially completed to be open shortly, and the rehabilitation of the airport, that will include the construction of new terminal building, is on the way. These islands, Madam Speaker, very small population. In 2022, San Salvador had a population of over 800. Cat Island, over 1,600. Rumkey was over 80, just 80. And while these islands, while these kinds of infrastructural improvements significantly benefit the lives of the residents, we must continue to be sensitive and mindful that development should be at a pace and in a manner that retains the special character of our communities. And I continue to be so very proud and grateful for the love and support of my people. Even as the company has continued to, even as the economy has continued to improve, we know that we have a lot of work yet to get done. There are still too many Bahamians that simply struggle. Of course, the lower light bills and reduced VAT on food helps, but they're not enough. The increase in the minimum wage, reductions in duty and other measures have also helped, but yet not enough. But the main causes of the cost of living and inequality are structural. These are not issues that can be fixed overnight, but we are determined, we have made a start, and we are determined to fix it. As I already announced late last year, and earlier again this year, the government is already moving forward to address some of the fundamental causes of the high cost of living in this country. We are developing legislation to strengthen competition, and we have already launched several initiatives under our trade diversification strategy. Given the new global tariffs being introduced by the new American administration, it is fortunate that we had already begun to expand and diversify our trade partners. We are also developing policies to reduce the costs of domestic trade between all of our islands. I've spoken on several occasions about the need to promote greater economic justice in the Bahamas. It is not right that as our national economic circumstances improve, all Bahamians are not able to feel and be uplifted in their situations. The strong, positive economic outlook for the Bahamas does not mean that there are no challenges on the horizon. However, in starting to build a budget surplus, we are in the fortunate position of being able to prepare ourselves better for a literal rainy day.
Yes.
Despite the shifting global political commitments, we still live with the existential threats brought about by climate change. We pray that we are kept safe another year from any major hurricanes, even while we work to make ourselves more resilient and better able to cope with any that come. Having invested substantial amount of personal time and effort in cultivating face-to-face relationships with leaders, investors, major institutions, technologists, and industrialists, I can confidently say that the Bahamas has friends. Should the worst happen, and we need to call on others, help will be ready and willing. But here, I wish to highlight 3 major climate-related initiatives. The first is the $124 million Debt for Nature swap we contracted to this fiscal year. We launched a debt conversion project to refinance $300 million of our external debt, unlocking an estimated $124 million in savings over 15 years for marine conservation and climate change mitigation. Because of the long-term national interest, this was an area in which I hoped we would find national unity. But sadly, the opposition predictably opposed it. Politics. Suffice to say, others recognized the innovative step we took, and the project won the Environment, Social, and Governance Deal of the Year at the Latin American Bond Awards 2025.
Yes.
This brings me to the second point. My global advocacy for climate justice, especially for small island developing states, has elevated the Bahamas' position and voice at international forums. We now are not only in the room, but have a seat around many decision-making tables, meaning that we are not merely rule takers, but rule makers. Yes. My third point relates to the Bahamas Sustainable Investment Program. This will be launched at COP28 to generate $500 million in climate adaptation and resilience funding our future through international fundraising. Crime remains high on the list of long-term challenges facing our Bahamas. Even so, we've made clear inroads on our strategy to cover prevention, policing, prosecution, punishment, and rehabilitation, and are rationalizing a vast number of programs and interventions that exist across a number of agencies. In particular, our Clear Whole Bill initiative has had a strong positive impact in Engliston and we are already seeing progress in Carmichael and Nassau Village. We will continue the rollout of this program. Madam Speaker, one of the more worrying features of the changing geopolitical landscape is the increasing willingness of states to engage in armed conflict. As we intensify our efforts to win a seat on the UN Security Council, it is worth noting that while such conflicts may not directly impact us, indirect impacts may be significant. As we have already seen in the region, worsening security conditions can mean an increase in refugees and human smuggling, changes in availability of and access to resources, and uncertainties as to how to plan. Madam Speaker, I raise these issues here not to alarm the Bahamian public, but instead to reassure that the strength of our fiscal position means that we are better placed than we have been for decades to deal with any headwinds which may come our way. These are serious times, Madam Speaker, and they call for serious people. Navigating these rapidly changing times and dealing with complex issues on behalf of the Bahamian people requires knowledge, skill, and experience. Politics may win you a seat in Parliament, but they won't help in your ability to do the job. As I come to the end of my contribution, Madam Speaker, I wish to recognize...
What is the point of order?
We keep hearing reference to politics, and it's already been tied back to the member from Marco City, the leader of opposition, from his Orange Economy publication. But what the good member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador is failing to recognize is that ahead of the last election, he paraded around with Buju Banton. It's politics time again. How you going to vote now? People them crying. So we know where the crown for politics lies in this country, Madam Speaker. The good member for Cat Island's been in the politics game for decades. Buju is moving like a nuclear now.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, let us be reminded that, this is the budget debate. We are talking about the future of a country and the people. Let's not make a mockery of this in this place, man. Let's don't do that. Tit for tat ain't good.
Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, again, it's not a point of order. Buju Banton sung against politics. You cannot align that with somebody who is the author of the book on politics. So it's not a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member.
Madam Speaker, the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador paraded around with a very popular regional artist at the campaign time. At the campaign time. You saw photos of Buju in government ministries after the election, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister knew what he's doing, Madam Speaker. Don't disrespect the player, Madam Speaker. Don't disrespect the player, Madam Speaker. If you're going to allow tit, tat will come.
The honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, I wish to refer the House to the rules. The rules say, this is what Rule 38, a member who rises on a point of order shall, when invited by you, Madam Speaker, to do so, state the infringement of these rules which his point of order is based, and then resume his seat. This is the rules. We have young people, we have schools listening to this, this debate. They must see us abiding by the rules. We're asking everybody to abide by the rule of law. Well, let's abide by the rules of the House.
And be a sensible people.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members.
Yeah,
Lord,
no,
be offense.
he's obviously a fan of, what's his name again? Buju Banter. You're obviously a fan. Yeah. Yeah. No, he knows the lyrics, man. He knows the lyrics. Oh, he Googled them? Madam Speaker, I think it's time for me to close. And as I come to the end of my contribution, I wish to recognize and give thanks to the many people who have helped in the preparation of this budget. The staff in the Ministry of Finance, continue to do a first-class job in shouldering the great fiscal responsibility that they have. And I thank them wholeheartedly for all their efforts. I'm especially grateful to the finance team, made up of the Minister of Economic Affairs, Michael Alcides, the Financial Secretary, Mr. Simon Wilson, the National Economic Advisor, Mr. Nat Beneby, and the Senior Policy Advisor, Mr. Jerome Fitzgerald. I meet with the team weekly to help chart and steer the economic ship of state. I want to thank them wholeheartedly for all their efforts. Every government ministry, department, agency, state-owned enterprises, which have participated in months of budget hearings, is responsible for all of the substantive policy actions which are in the budget. The prudent management of their resources, along with efforts to implement government policy, are deeply appreciated. On a more personal note, I wish to publicly thank the staff and the Office of the Prime Minister who provided such support for the work across the whole government. Their commitment is unsurpassed. In particular, I wish to recognize the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Cresswell Sturrock, who brings the wisdom and experience of many, many years spent in the public service. I also wish to recognize Ms. Alison Colley, my Chief of Staff and Head of the Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, who, apart from delivering a number of priorities, leads the charge in helping me accomplish so much on any given day. Those I thank are a cross-section of the many thousands of Bahamians in our country who have each day made such a positive contribution to our society, and I thank the Bahamian people as well. They represent the diversity of people in our country, talented, educated, capable people who choose to give of themselves to supporting our national development. They prioritize the national good and the national interest ahead of financial gain, and sometimes at the expense of family life. And all Bahamians benefit from their sacrifice. Madam Speaker, it is the choices and priorities we make in life that define us. In several budget contributions, I've highlighted the fact that national budgets are a statement of a government's choices and priorities. I do so because I wish to constantly remind the Bahamian people that what is happening today was not inevitable. Things didn't have to be like this, Things didn't have to be like this. Under a different government, given their hostility to our choices and priorities, the successes and achievements we now enjoy would never have come to pass. But in partnership with the Bahamian people, our choices and priorities have put the economy firmly on course for growth and opportunity, island by island. Our choices and priorities are good for the Bahamas and good for the Bahamian people. And so I invite the members of the opposition to also make a positive choice. Join us in this national effort and focus on the common good. Stop wishing failure, man. Challenge and oppose us, yes, to make things better, not to destroy the good name of others or damage the reputation of our Bahamas. The wonderful people of Cat Island, Rum Cay, and San Salvador sent me here with hearts full, with their hearts full and hopes high. And with their continuing support, the partnerships of Bahamians everywhere, and with the strength of Almighty God, this budget meets the moment of their expectation, and I commend it to the House.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, we are now at the time for the usual suspension. I'd wish to reserve the place for the member for Foxhill, who will second the bill.
Thank you, Honorable Members. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House be suspended until 3 p.m. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is agreed. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m.
All right. Devotional segment. This morning I'll be sharing a devotion entitled The Importance of Seeking God's Direction. I want to begin this morning's devotion by encouraging each of you, under the sound of my voice, to seek God's direction. Find out His will and plan for your life before you make any decisions regarding your life. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 6 says, "In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths." It's a guarantee. If we acknowledge God in all of our ways, He will direct our path. If we don't acknowledge God before making decisions, we can run the risk of making the wrong decisions, going off course, and ultimately ruining our lives. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12 says, "There is a way that seemeth right to a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." As a nation, it's important for us to seek God's direction before we make any decisions. In the Old Testament, it was customary for kings who served as country heads to seek the Lord before making any decision for their nation. As a nation, we must do the same and not allow our human intuition, our human intelligence, or our human ingenuity to take precedence over God's wisdom and intelligence. The God we serve, he is omniscient and he is all-wise. God knows what we don't know. His wisdom is superior to man's wisdom. God sees what we can't see. As a matter of fact, God sees around the corner. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and 9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." In conclusion, let's all recommit to seeking God's direction for our private and public life before we make any decision. Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8 says, "Ask and it shall be given. Seek, you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth. He that seeketh findeth. And to him that knocketh it shall be opened." I leave you with this final thought today from a quote by Stormy O. Martin, which says, "Seeking God first always puts us in the correct position and aims us in the right direction to move in the future God has for us." See that. Think of that on these things. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for sparing our lives to see yet another day. We acknowledge that it's in you we live, it's in you we move, it's in you we have our beings.